Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with you on this Friday. We're going into week 8 of the college football season, broadcasting live from our studios. Red River Ford Toyota, open Monday through Saturday in Wynne, Arkansas, about 45 minutes from Memphis on I-40, 9 a.m., 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday. Check them out on the website, redriverfordtoyota.com. Still very good swaps on, trading in your used car, truck, SUV for a new one. Still do it. Give them a call, Red River Ford Toyota. Ask for Justin Wynn, general manager, or Rusty Ford or Greg Smith, sales managers out on the floor. And their service department's open on Saturdays, 7:30 in the morning till 12:30. 25 service bays. Man, they get after it, and they are quick. They are really, 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 really good. All right, Michael Brennan. What a great Irish Catholic that one is out there on the beach. It looks like Maywood to me, Brennan. I'm not sure. Could be down on 30A. Could be in L.A., Lower Alabama. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. Doug Dean on the line with us right now. Before Gordon Ford joins us, we've got also in segment number 2, it's going to be a cool one, Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger, with Dan Borne, the voice of Tiger Stadium down at Death Valley in Baton Rouge. Top of the second hour, Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America. I love this guy, man. Heisman Trophy voter, influencer in college football, historian, will join us along with Bo Carter, longtime member of the Big 12 office out there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, the triplex. I'm going to start calling it out there. But we're here with you every Monday through Saturday, 2 hours every day, sidelines.live, 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta, Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, Alabama. Let's talk some college football. Let's talk about Doug Dean, AU Dose in Birmingham. Got some news that he wants to share with us, and I know he's going to be on here in just a minute. But this deal with the Auburn AD, it's really interesting. You got to get this one right, and I'm anxious to hear what he has to say. But you look around at the college landscape. Tennessee, they knocked it out of the park a couple of years ago when they hired Danny White as the AD. He quickly jumped on his coach at his previous school, University of Central Florida, UCF, and brought Josh Heupel up to Knoxville. And look at it, 2 years later, look where Auburn is, and look where Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers are, minus a goalpost and a GoFundMe page. But Doug Dean, you got some news on this Auburn AD search. Let's talk here for just a couple of minutes before we get going. But this is big news. Doug, are you there? Okay. Well, want to know, just out of curiosity, you got to think. You've got to get. You've got to be able to get going. And hire an AD. You got to be able to do this. And Alan Green not coming back after 4.5 years. His contract's not going to be renewed, and it's very important because the AD is the advice and the fundraiser, the aggregator. In the case of Auburn, you got 21 different teams. That's typical of most schools across the SEC. And I would think that just looking at this as it is, you just don't want to get that wrong. And because you've got to go out and hire a football coach. And you look at what Ole Miss did. Brilliant move on their part, getting Lane Kiffin after he'd gone up to Arkansas. And Arkansas got a great one. They got Sam Pittman. So you look at the schools where you get the right fit as your head coach. Man, it makes things a lot of fun. You can have a lot of success. You can have all the resources, all the recruiting, the talent right there in your backyard. But if you don't have a football coach and staff that know how to get out there, build those relationships with the high school coaches and get the top players, you're not going to win. Doug Dean, what are you hearing movement-wise on the Auburn AD search?
Yeah, and Rob, thanks Thanks for letting me hop on for just a second. I know you got guests coming up, and another great football weekend ahead, and I look forward to Auburn's chances at winning tomorrow. So, normally athletic director hires would be somewhat uninteresting, but because of the recent dysfunction, if you will, in the loveliest village and the criticality of everything that's going on competitively with, it's not just Georgia and Alabama running away from the SEC. Everybody else is getting better now. So it makes this AD hire a little more interesting. I had been hearing John Hartwell, who's got a phenomenal resume and background, including Ole Miss, AD at Troy, and of course at Utah State right now, has this very strong Auburn family background, which helps. But I think he's certainly still a candidate, but there's another one emerging potentially, and interestingly, is a favorite son, for whatever reason, of none other than Commissioner Greg Sankey. I don't think Greg Sankey inserts himself forcefully in making hires, but he wants every member institution to get better. And so he put forward Eddie Nunez, who is currently, he's at New Mexico, the Lobos. They haven't distinguished themselves on the football field, but Nunez is not playing for them. And he had 14 years at LSU in some kind of deputy athletic director role, so great experience in the SEC. Interestingly, for those who want to say, which I'll agree with for now, Auburn is a basketball school, Nunez started his own as a player, his basketball career at a community college somewhere in Florida, but he was recruited by the great Billy Donovan and played as a walk-on 2 years for Donovan. So if you want to believe that, Bruce inserted himself and I want a guy with a basketball background, there's your conspiracy. But that, I think it's those two right now, which probably means, Rob and Jimmy, some other name will emerge and be announced.
Well, you sit there and you look at these numbers. This guy Munoz, he's at New Mexico.
Correct.
Yeah, and go ahead, look at he became the AD at University of New Mexico in 2017. Utah State, that's where John Hartwell is, versus University of New Mexico in football since then. It's Utah State 5-0. Utah State versus University of New Mexico, where Munoz is in men's basketball. Since that time, Utah State University, where John Hartwell's the AD, is 8-2.
Yep. Look, I'm a Hartwell guy, but I don't see all the facts and figures.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
So, but I think the signal, not noise, as I like to say, Rob, is that this at least makes it clear that President Roberts is not just looking internal with a Richmond Lynn, for example. He wants to bring in depth of experience and try to rebuild the decision-making, the power structure around Auburn football. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, Doug, tomorrow we need to get you back on the round table tomorrow talking more, but again, I'm not looking at all these things, but John Hartwell's got connections. He's never worked at Auburn. He's looked at it from the outside. I think he would be a great AD, but I will say this. I don't want anybody telling Auburn what to do. I hope Auburn just does what they do, but we know the Jabba effect. And, you got to hire people that come here from Sikkim. So that's going to be, but that's great information. And I'm glad you informed us on that. And we're going to see what happens. And it's going to be a big weekend ahead. It's the bye weekend. Auburn wins.
40s from Alabama. So after finally moving to my new home and feeling the pain in my lower back, I'll be up a tree somewhere in Dallas County tomorrow morning. So, Rob, if you need me out of the bullpen, I'll try to let an arrow fly before 8 a.m.
All right. I'll give you a call after the show this morning.
Y'all have a good day.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Doug Dean, AU Docent, Birmingham. Wow. Jabba. That's all I can say. Jabba. Just Auburn being Auburn. We'll see what happens. But lots to talk about today. Gordon Ford is going to be joining us here in a second. Jimmy Hodge with us up in Knoxville. Jimmy, we've been working. I told Gordon we were going to bring him into the 21st century in technology. I said, this is so easy, this system. that even Jethro Bodine and I and you can do it. Send the link, ready to go. So Gordon's he's on fire watch up in the fire tower to see who all's gonna be fired. I mean, he's the only person I know that goes, hey, let me tell you, he was on Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee, probably in year 2. And I was like, they won 8 games. But anyway, Gordon, you with us? No, okay. Gordon will be with us here momentarily. But Jimmy, looking around weekend of college football, we're going to talk with Gordon about Ole Miss going down to Baton Rouge. I think that game, did Auburn expose Ole Miss that you can run on them? Auburn scored 34 points. Ole Miss hadn't given up points like that all season long. And Auburn's players, they're not going to quit. I mean, they've got talent. We know that. But looking at this big picture with what's going on, do you think LSU at home 2:30 can beat Ole Miss?
Sure they can. Sure. I mean, just watching the last 3 quarters of the Auburn game last week. I mean, when Ole Miss jumped out 21-0, it had all the earmarks of Ole Miss being able to name the score, and then the next thing you know, it's 28-24. Ole Miss is fighting for their lives. They kick a field goal to make it 31-24, and then they pulled off, I think, the backbreaker for Auburn, and that was the onside kick, which gave Ole Miss a free possession. They quickly went down and scored to make it a 2-touchdown difference, and that was just too much for Auburn to overcome. So you'd better believe that the LSU coaching staff has been studying that Auburn-Ole Miss game tape very closely, and I imagine the Tiger coaching staff has seen some things in that Ole Miss defense that they feel give them some opportunities to be successful. Not to mention that Jaden Davis had his best game of the season by far against
Jaden Daniels,
Florida. Yeah, Jaden Daniels. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Jimmy, no, Gordon's joined us. He's climbed up the phone pole behind the house here on the party line with Mr. Haney. Is this Mr. Haney or is this Gordon?
This Gordon.
Hey, Gordon, we're talking about this Ole Miss going to LSU. 2:30 kickoff. It won't be, a night game at Tiger Stadium, but I'm just saying, last week, I know with the communications, we were unable to get the man on the street, the live report from Gordon in the Grove.
Well, I don't think you got on there either.
I couldn't get a call across the street up in Knoxville. What does that say about the state of communications in this country? But anyway, I digress. But let's talk about it. Jimmy was making some points. I said, do you think LSU can beat Ole Miss at home? He said, sure they can. They're a physical team. What did Auburn expose that has you concerned as an Ole Miss guy? Because, I'm fired up about this Ole Miss team. I've been a big Kiffin backer. He is not going to be fired. He's not even on your list. But talk about that game, and then I want to go over who you think's on the fire watch.
Well, we all know who's on the fire watch. That's, pretty evident. But one of the things is about what they exposed is that they ran the ball on Ole Miss very well. Tank Bigsby had 186 yards.
Yeah.
And I was very concerned about the Ole Miss defense in that game because, it seems to be that you can run on the corners against them and, passing, they pretty much shut that down. But, Vanderbilt and Auburn have run the ball on them. And then, Vanderbilt had kind of stacked the line up on them where they weren't able to run and they ran all over Auburn. But when Dart had to throw the ball, he threw for 444 yards. And against Auburn, he really didn't have to. And Kiffin said afterwards that was what he thought they needed to do against Auburn to beat them is to run. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Dart had 130 yards passing, 110 on the ground. And I was talking to a guy in the press room. I said, well, who do you think he reminds you of? What former Ole Miss quarterback? And I asked Kerry Harrison this, the Rebels color guy.
Yeah.
4K. I mean, that was kind of a, 80 type game right there with a guy throwing and passing for a bunch of yards.
Yeah. Look, Ole Miss, the place was packed over there. Again, we were in Knoxville and for that Tennessee-Alabama game, but you got to love this Ole Miss team if you're an Ole Miss fan. Defense has played really well. You gave up some points the other day, but you scored 48. Okay. Give your offense credit. But 3 guys rushed for over 100 yards. Gordon, we're about to take a break, but we're going to come back. We're going to get more into it. But let's get started. Who's on your fire watch right now? There already been some firings of coaches early because you got that December signing date, but you're very good at exposing malpractice on the practice and the coaching on the game day field.
Well, I can tell you one for sure is Brian Harsin.
No,
I mean, yeah,
Jimmy, would you agree with that?
There's any pardon from the governor from him, but
no,
I mean,
not from me, Ma.
BMW, brother, dead man walking. But yeah, we'll look at it when we get back on the break here. How about that?
Well, look, we still got a few seconds, but this is the thing. And Gordon, you remember a couple of years ago, I guess it was back in the fall of 2019, you were not real high on Jeremy Pruitt. And I liked him. I think he's a great X's and O's coach.
Oh, you were all over him, man.
But he went to the Joe Stalin School of Charm. I understand that. But he's a great recruiter. He's a great coordinator. So we're going to start putting together a list of the greatest coordinators that weren't successful as head coaches who are great coordinators. Jeremy Pruitt needs to be back in college football. He will be back. I believe he will. We're going to talk more about who is walking, as Gordon says, the green mile right after this quick commercial break on Friday's edition of Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with you on this Friday edition of Sidelines with Jimmy Hodge in Knoxville, Gordon Ford in Memphis on the fire watch from that fire tower. You see those fire towers?
I can tell you who's on there.
Yeah. Let's go.
I can tell you one guy for sure, and I mean, you can just stick a fork in him. He's done. Jeff Scott at South Florida. They've been terrible under him.
Yeah.
That's Brad Scott's son. He's the offensive coordinator at Clemson. Of course, Harsin. Jimbo's on the hot seat, but they can't fire him because they've got to pay him a king's ransom.
Yeah.
Pat Fitzgerald's another guy that's, been catching some heat. And I'll tell you, Jimmy, you might want to add on this one. David Shaw, all you've ever heard is he's a genius, and he hadn't been winning much lately. So, I would think that they may be taking a look at him.
Out at Stanford. Been there for what?
Out at Stanford.
15 years?
Mm-hmm.
Not 10 since Harbaugh left.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, Harbaugh's only been gone 10 years. Sounds like he's been at Michigan for 50.
He replaced Brady Hoke. So I think his is his 7th year, but Brady was there for what, 4? So yeah, it's been 10, 11 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Gordon, you look around at the landscape, you don't have a choice if you're an AD or if your school doesn't have an AD or president or somebody with the authority to make a coaching change or announce it. You got to do it. You got the December signing date. And if you miss that December signing date, you're just waiting for scraps to fall from the table. And, you've got to get you look at what Georgia since 2015, Alabama since 2015 has signed 89 players who were top 100 players when they signed. Georgia 69, Auburn 19, only 3 in the last 2 years. And you look at the talent down there. I mean, that right there, your head spinning. Who do you think, looking around at possible coaches out there, who is the next Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or Brian Kelly?
That's a good question. I would have said it was Will Healy, but he's on the hot seat. So, it's Charlotte. He's done a good job. I mean, there's some other guys I'm sure that I hadn't mentioned, but, you get to look and see that. I mean, you got some people here that are just, it's ridiculous. And some of these contracts, like Jimbo Fisher, in a normal situation, he'd be on the hot seat, but they have to pay him $95 million to get rid of him. And then the most ignorant thing is signing Mel Tucker to a 10-year deal, $9.5 million a year, and they're terrible this year. I mean, how can people do this? I mean, it's some stupid stuff.
Yeah. Well, that right there, he has one good year at Michigan State.
One good year. He didn't even win at Colorado.
Could you imagine if they paid people in business like what you and I do, Gordon, in financial services? You have a good year, and they say, we're going to give you that year guaranteed for the next 10 years with a buyout. I mean, how motivated would you be to get out of bed in the morning?
Not really.
I mean, it's like
no, I would, because I pride in my job, and
I do too.
That these guys do.
Yeah.
But Jimbo's just up there. He's just made a ton of money. He had been #1 recruiting class in the country. Had to bring Johnson in, who got hurt, and what's a guy starting now, Haynes King.
Yeah, Haynes King.
You would think that with all the players they have, they should be a lot better, right?
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's exactly it. No, I have so much pride in what I do. Yeah, I'd be up earlier just to prove I'm worth it. But not everybody's like you and me. Gordon, is that a typewriter I hear in the background?
No, there's nothing in the background.
No, I'm kidding. Audrey said we were at about the because you do wear the trench coat with the reporter's hat. No, you're ahead of the curve on this stuff. And you're right about these coaches out there that probably need to be shown the door. Another one I'm going to ask you about, and I look at, we had SEC basketball media days over at the Grand Bohemian Hotel there in Mountain Brook. And man, that place, that place is spectacular. Right there by the Char Bar in Mountain Brook, there in Mountain Brook Village and all. Anything jump out at you from what you heard from, any of the coaches? Well, about 6 of them are first-year coaches. And we know Mike White, Ole Miss Rebel, who was left at Florida before he was probably going to be fired, went to Georgia. And one thing he's doing is he's going out there and beating the pavement on the AAU circuit in Georgia, Metro Atlanta. There's a lot of talent there. Can he win big at Georgia?
Yeah, I know Mike well. He is a great guy, and I've known him for a long time. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think Georgia can win in basketball, no doubt about it. I really hadn't studied it that much, but, I was talking to Tim Floyd, and I went down to watch Ole Miss's basketball practice. And when I was down there, I was talking to him, and I think Ole Miss is going to be a surprise. They're already picked number 50 in the country right now. So, that's an improvement. But if they didn't have so many injuries, they would have been a much better team. And I think they're going to be vastly improved. They got new players coming in. Kermit's a great coach, and I think that they're going to win. One of the reasons is I think the league is going to be down because you got 6 new coaches and you had a bunch of people transfer.
Yeah. Do you think the league's going to be down? And Kermit Davis, he's one of my favorite coaches. He's probably the best dressed coach in the league. Doesn't he go to Hinton and Hinton on the Square since 1839 there in Oxford clothing store? I mean, he's just he's one of my favorite coaches. And we had him on the show before. Love to get him on again. Who do you think, who's the front runner? Has Coach Cowell just reached the point of diminishing returns? That's as good as it's ever going to get. And sure, they're always going to be in the mix because they're Kentucky, but who do you look for? Tennessee this year, Auburn, Arkansas, there's some. While you say there's 6 new coaches, yes, but there's 8 veteran coaches coming back, and Musselman at Arkansas, they're scary talented. They got 6 freshmen that'll be playing this year.
I think there'll be one. Just off the top of my head, like I said, I hadn't really studied it because I've been mainly into football, but I think there'll be one. Kentucky will be in there. I think I don't know about LSU because they lost a lot.
Yeah.
I think that just looking at it, I think Ole Miss will be in there. Vanderbilt. They lost Scottie Pippen Jr. So I don't know what they're going to be. You look at South Carolina, they're going to be down. Florida, they got a new coach, and I don't know what they'll be like. They weren't very good at the end of the year, and I think they lost some talent. So it's just, until I can sit down and study it, I can give you a better answer. But off the top of my head, those will be the first 2 teams. But you asked me about Cal petering out. See, he's on another one of those deals where they got to pay him $60 million to fire him or him to retire. I would think at some point in the next couple of years, he'll end up hanging it up. But like I said, a lot of these guys are hanging around getting that big money, and there's, his salary's $9.2 million. He's higher than the football coach.
Yeah. Well, you just, again, some athletic director is going to have to call the bluff, but it's the agents, the ADs. There's so much that goes on. Ole Miss in basketball, Andy Kennedy was there 12 years. They averaged over like 21 wins a year. You can win in Ole Miss in basketball. Injuries, that's the bad part about it. You can only have 13 guys on scholarship. Gordon, typically, what do you have? Maybe 10 or 11 on scholarship. And with the portal, guys are coming and going so fast. That roster probably doesn't know each other that well till they start actually playing, do they?
No, not really. But, I think these guys are getting together. Like I said, I watched Ole Miss's practice the other day, and those guys kind of gelled. And, they had some players that were, still hobbling a little bit. But, I think they'll be okay. But I haven't seen these other teams. I'm sure you'll start having exhibition games here at the end of the month. But, I still think Kentucky's going to be good. Tennessee's going to be good. And, Tennessee, they got a great coach there. And I think they're going to, those 3 teams that I mentioned, Tennessee, Arkansas for sure, and Kentucky and probably Alabama. I don't know about Auburn. They lost a lot too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I hadn't had a chance to really study their roster.
Gordon, when Auburn got taken out by Miami with the 4-guard lineup, Auburn's guards are not real tall. Wendell Green, KD Johnson, they're back. Everybody, they're all back. But, you're bringing in a new player, Traore from LSU, who's going to LSU. That's the thing. But Bruce Pearl, one thing he can do in that staff, they can develop talent. So I expect them. I think they're picked 15 in the preseason. Last year, I don't think they were ranked in the preseason, and they won the SEC. So see how that works out. Gordon, look, we got to get you. We're getting toward basketball. It's starting to crank up, do more of it. But do you think Harsin survives till the end of the season, or like they got Arkansas coming in? Auburn's off this weekend. The 11A, Auburn's in the timeout slot. When your program starts losing, the fans suffer too with the 11 a.m. kickoff. You think Auburn, if Arkansas goes down there and gets after Auburn and puts 42 on them, that Auburn does something?
Do I think he survives the season? That's a good question. But here's the deal. They don't have an athletic director.
I know.
So who's going to fire him? I know you said the chancellor can, but who is going to fire him? Usually you hire a new AD and he comes in and fires him. Now, you've been kind of studying that a lot, Rob. Tell me this. Who is going to be the AD? You're hearing all these different names, some ex-compliance officer, and I think before we got on the air, you threw somebody else in there. What are they going to do, and when is that going to happen?
It needs to happen soon because the look around you. Everybody else is getting better. They got people in place. That was, I think, Eddie Munoz, the AD at New Mexico, who was a deputy AD at LSU 14 years. And Doug was just saying the possibility that the SEC commissioner may be, pushing him toward Auburn. Auburn's got to make the best decision for Auburn. John Hartwell, to me, is the best choice with his relationships.
He's a good one.
A Mobile guy. He knows the SEC. You can't bring someone in who doesn't speak the language. That just doesn't work. You've got to have someone that knows the landscape of what you're up against, especially in a place like Auburn. If you don't understand and you're not ready to go toe to toe and get in the face of Georgia and Alabama, you will be wiped off the map. And that's kind of looking at it in recruiting right now. Auburn's not even competing with Georgia and Alabama for the top players. Just a few years ago, Auburn would typically get 3 or 4 of the top 15 or 20 players in Georgia. And I'm talking maybe 2 in the top 10 or 12. That's not happening right now. So Auburn's got to make a change. But Gordon,
I'll make one last comment.
Yeah, I'm fired up having you on. You get it?
I'm gonna say this real quick.
All right.
Whoever they hire as an athletic director
Yeah.
has to be like Ole Miss's athletic director, Keith Carter.
Yeah.
Not afraid to make a decision. And you're talking about Harsin. I mean, you've got to fire him. And one thing about Keith Carter, he doesn't screw around. If you're not getting the job done, he will get rid of you.
Yeah.
And that's what Auburn needs right now, someone to shake it up.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think, John Hartwell's the kind of guy to look at.
Hartwell will do that. I'll give him that.
Yeah. Look at your top 3 or 4. If you're not in the top 3 or 4 in the SEC in every sport, you need to have a conversation of why aren't we there? What do we need to do to help you? If you give them everything they ask for and they don't get the job done, time to move on. Gordon, I'm fired up. You get it? I'm fired up having you on here. You get me fired
I'll
up.
have you all the basketball you need next week.
Hey, and football too. We'll talk to you later today.
All right.
Thank you so much. All right.
Take it easy, guys.
You bet.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Always love it, man. That is Gordon Ford, Rebel Yell Hotline on Mondays, 6 to 7 p.m. Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis and Super Talk, Mississippi. Huge audience there. Yancey Porter's on there. Gary Darby, Chuck Rounsville. Great folks over there at Ole Miss. Hey, man, Jimmy, about to be joined by Frank Duffy. Go Tigers. Dan Borne, longtime voice of the Tiger Stadium down at Death Valley in Baton Rouge. And when the sun sets in the western sky, I'm going to tell you something, man. That is like saying, I was in Buc-ee's, I think it was Sunday, and they said, hot brisket coming up. They all sing in unison. But, Dan Borne, Frank Duffy, welcome to Sidelines.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Hey, man. Yeah, this is great. Frank, thank you so much for making this happen. And, I've been to Tiger Stadium to games before. It's magic. I grew up listening on WWL 870 when John Ferguson was the voice of the Tigers, and then Jim Hawthorne. And it is a special place, but what you do makes it even more special. And just, Frank, I know you had some questions to ask Dan, but first off, thank you for taking time to join us and talk about what you do, because you add a lot to the experience. A number of LSU friends of mine that are listening have said, "Oh my God, that's the guy, that's the man." And so you're
well. I want to brag on Frank first. I mean, when his 75-foot mobile home pulls into his parking, he gets his own parking lot. And of course, the sirens and the motorcycles and the black SUVs. I mean, this boy comes loaded. Okay, loaded. So
thank you, Dan. That's nice, brother.
All right, Frank. I know you've got a sad thing to go to later this afternoon in New Orleans, and you're probably on your way there. In all seriousness. So I've been doing this. This is my 37th year, Rob and Jimmy and Frank. I started in 1986 football, and in 1988 I began doing basketball. So it'll be my 37th. It's my 37th year for football, and it'll be my 35th year for basketball coming up. And it's been a wonderful run, because as a young man, a young boy in the 50s, I began coming to LSU football games when I was around 8 or 9 years old. And back then it was a 68,000 seat stadium that had very dim lights. There was no television back then in terms of LSU being on television. And the games were at 8 o'clock, and the fog would come in around 9 o'clock from West Baton Rouge Parish over the river. And it created an ephemeral atmosphere. It was almost like otherworldly. You were in suspension. And those are the memories that I have of that stadium. And of course, it was a tremendous honor to be asked to become the PA guy in 86. And it's been a great run. I've enjoyed it. I've had the opportunity to MC 3 national championship celebrations here at LSU. And so I guess, we'll wait and see how this season comes out and how Coach Kelly is going to continue to remold and reconstitute our team. We're very excited about it.
Well, and Rob, I will tell you, if Dan has his memories as a young man of Tiger Stadium in the 50s, I can tell you there are at least two generations that all of the heroic actions that happened in Tiger Stadium had this man's voice behind them as a soundtrack. And that is something that Tiger fans, when they hear that voice, touchdown Tigers.
It is magic. Hold those thoughts, Frank. We're going to take a quick break and come back because it is. I was just watching a bunch of the videos last night. It is truly special. Dan Borne, voice of Tiger Stadium, with us right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
I'm back here with you on this Friday. SEC college football is on the menu. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville, Frank Duffy and Dan Borne, the voice of Tiger Stadium, the real Death Valley down in Baton Rouge. And, Frank talks about, Dan, that, three things in LSU that are special in the state of Louisiana. One of them is your gumbo paddle. I'll say the other one is night football at Tiger Stadium. And we need to have a public trial, kangaroo court, you might say, for whoever came up with the 11 a.m. time slot. It should not be allowed, just like beef stew should never be served at the house. 11 a.m. Tiger Stadium, it's not right.
And that may change as the contracts for the various, football programs change with the networks. Yeah, it's awfully hard to play at 11 o'clock, and it's awfully hard to play a good team like Tennessee at, in the middle of the morning. Your whole body clock gets turned around. That's no excuse. But it is. Everyone's on a different clock, and I know some of the guys like to play during the day, but I would guess most of them who have this circadian rhythm to their lives would prefer to play at night.
Yeah. We always play high school football growing up at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the special part about it.
And Rob, of course, the reason LSU night football came about was everybody was out there working in the fields, working in the rice fields, sugarcane fields. So it just made more sense not to be playing under that broiling sun, but also not to take, the workers that could have been out, because we are an agricultural state.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were also working at the plants in Baton Rouge and down the river. And we only had two river crossings back then, one in Baton Rouge, north of here, and the other down in New Orleans. And so people had to get across the river to come from the other side of the state. And so there were a bunch of ferries that would bring people across the river and up through on Highland Road and into the stadium. So there were a lot of reasons for an 8 o'clock start. And it eventually went back to 7:30 and then, 7 o'clock. So it's been all over the map. But there's no doubt there's something magic about Saturday night in Death Valley.
Yeah. Now, if you're an opponent, you always like, oh, my God, we get to play them in the day. But got to think about the LSU people. That is their university. Jimmy Hodge jumping here with Dan Borne, legendary voice of Tiger Stadium. And I say that because it is. My phone's lighting up with LSU people going, man, that's the guy. I'm actually seeing him right now. So, and this is just, wow. And also you are a historian. Nice. I can tell that you appreciate the history. But Jimmy, jump in.
He is that.
Well, Dan, I've got to say, as an Alabama guy, if I could ask him if I could only go to one more college football game in my life, where would I like to go? I'd have to go with Baton Rouge on Saturday night, but only if LSU is really good and they're playing an opponent where a championship is on the line. I mean, it is just absolutely electric there. The last game I was at was the 2012 Alabama LSU game. And I've got to ask you, sitting in the press box, how well can you gauge the noise in the stadium? Because I know it's hard because you're directly above, of course, the West stands and so forth. But in that particular game, early in the second half, when McCarron and TJ Yeldon botched the handoff at the 5-yard line and LSU responded to go 95 yards to take the lead, I have never seen a
It was
team
deafening.
feed off the crowd like LSU did that night. And I was just curious, what's the loudest you can ever remember, at least during your days as the PA announcer there?
Well, that was certainly one of those. And I can hear it very well. I can hear the crowd noise very well. In fact, I like the crowd noise. There's a certain interaction between the PA and the crowd noise that you'd like to have in your, like you all have your earphones on now. I guess the earthquake game in 1988, when Hodgson threw the pass to Fuller along the end line of the end zone, and we scored, and the eruption in the stadium was it was catastrophic. I mean, it created an earthquake. It created a blip on the Richter scale, and that's why they call it the earthquake game. We were playing Florida during our championship season, and that's when we were vying for first place in the nation with Southern Cal. And Southern Cal was playing Stanford. And Stanford won the game. LSU scored a touchdown, and we announced the Stanford score, and it went absolutely nuts. I would say I've never dreamed that announcing a score would have that kind of explosion, but the place really did shake. And so, yeah, there've been great moments like that. And with 102,231 people now, if they get cranked up and they all get on the same page, it can be kind of loud.
Hey, Dan, I would love for you to speak about that first game when you sat behind the mic, because it was such a memorable game for many of us fans. It was the first time that we renewed our old rivalry with Texas A&M. It was a 10-game home and home, and we just had a bitter recruiting battle over Harvey Williams from Hempstead, Texas, who came to Tiger, had a great pro career. Speak to what it was like to sit behind that microphone for the very first time.
Well, I have to go back to '68 when I came up here after graduating from Nichols to come to graduate school. And the guy who did PA in Tiger Stadium was a guy named Sid Crocker, and he also worked for Channel 9, the television station I worked for. And in September of 1968, I went to cover my first LSU game, and Sid invited me up to the booth where he worked and said, "Come and see where I work. You might be doing this one day." And it was we kidded about it. It was a joke. And by the way, that game was Texas A&M in 1968. So the first game that I covered as a news person for a television station was LSU Texas A&M. So it was kind of karma that I would get Texas A&M as the first game I would call in Tiger Stadium. Yeah, Harvey Williams. I should have put it on a continuous loop. Harvey Williams carried. Harvey Williams carried. Harvey Williams carried. Because Harvey Williams carried, and he carried a lot. He's a tremendous player, and of course Hodgson was playing then, and Wendell Davis. We had a
great team,
an arsenal of good players. Yeah.
This is a question from Artemis Powell, one of our listeners down in Sylacauga, Alabama. Ask Dan Borne, did you know Leland Childs, stadium announcer in my childhood and youth at Jordan-Hare Stadium, then Cliff-Hare Stadium? And he also says, do the stadium announcers ever meet up or otherwise socialize? He said, what a great guest. Frank Duffy is a true gem. He also said, do you know Carl Stevens, who was longtime PA announcer at Auburn? Because your voices are so powerful that all of a sudden you wake up one day when there's a change, you know it. Who moved my cheese?
Well, I appreciate that question. No, we don't get together. I've often thought what it would be like to ask all of the PA announcers in the SEC to meet in New Orleans for a weekend, and we could really trade a bunch of lies. But we haven't really.
I want to film it.
Yeah.
No
Well,
kidding.
I'm not sure you would want to film it, but it would be, believe me, with enough rocket fuel, there'd be a lot of stories being told. But no, I
Yeah, there
don't.
would.
And look, I appreciate the comment about the voice, but guys, with about $3 million worth of equipment in Tiger Stadium behind you, Donald Duck could sound pretty good. Okay,
You're being self-deprecating, Dan. I've got at least 109,000 friends in there that would say otherwise. Hey,
you're very kind. Thank you.
Dan, can you talk about that night in 1997 when Steve Spurrier brought in those hated Gators and they were number one, and we barely had a puncher's chance, and we upset them that night? Can you remember that night and the feeling?
I remember grown men going onto the field with their kids, doing these sun salutations, laying flat on the ground and worshiping, picking up chunks of Tiger Stadium, goalposts coming down. One of the things I remember is the students took the goalpost down, and one of them broke off, and they were trying to carry that piece of goalpost up the west side to throw it off the back of the stadium, but they were caught before they did it. That was incredible. Yeah, anytime you beat a number one team, everybody goes a little bit crazy. But now, of course, the SEC has clamped down on that, and I'm sure Tennessee has written a check for at least $250,000 for the.
Let me tell you, Dan. If we win in 2 weeks, I'll put a GoFundMe page on, and I'll put the first $5,000 in to pay for that one.
Yeah, I think the problem is your second or third offense, the ante goes up. So
That's right. Tennessee learned that the hard way.
Well, it wasn't that bad. Dan, I'm with you. I thought it was 250,000, but Jimmy Himes at the Knoxville ESPN affiliate told us that the first one is $50,000, and for Tennessee that occurred in 2006, I think, after a basketball court storming. Then it goes up to 100, and that's what they were assessed Saturday. Then the next one is 250, and then I think the next one is $500,000. But I was like you, I thought it was an automatic 250, but it isn't quite that steep. But I thought it was pretty cheesy for Danny White to ask the fans to pony up a GoPayMe page or GoFundMe page. I mean, when each school gets 48 million at the SEC meetings every May, I think they can probably handle that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that our championships have done for us, I think it's conditioned us now as a crowd to act like a championship team and not to take the field, not to, you do that once, fine, I get it. But if you're a winning football team and you consistently win, then there's a degree of maturity that's shown by a crowd that decides it's not going to rush the field. So.
I love that, Dan. You're exactly right. And I do have one more question. Speaking of national championships, to dovetail, there's one more night that I'd like you to speak about, which I'm telling you was an incredible love fest. And that was on our way to what we pretty thought we were going to have a national championship team. And that was 2019 when one Joe Burrow, the GOAT, came out of the tunnel with that unique spelling of the name Burrow. What is your memory of that night? Because it was one of the most special nights I can remember at Tiger Stadium.
Well, I remember we won the game. And, of course, we won all the games that year. I did not know that he had that on the back of his jersey until he came to the bench. In other words, I couldn't see him coming out. I wasn't paying attention to the video boards when he came out. But that certainly electrified the crowd. And you look back on that team, and it was lightning in a bottle. Never, all of the vectors aligned. And you had a tremendous offense. You had a defense that took care of business. You had receivers that are now dominating the National Football League. You had a quarterback who could throw a laser. It was just magic, and there'll never be another season like it. Now, some teams may get close, but I'm not sure any team is going to beat as many top 10 teams as that team did, the way it did, running up the yards that it ran up. It's just it was a Camelot moment. don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot called 2019 Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
That's
Here's
right.
another question. This is an interesting one. And I'm going to tell you what, Keith Richards, what about the Auburn 97 game against LSU with Cecil, the Diesel Collins ran for about 1,000 yards? He said, how crazy was that night? Or is that just business as usual at Tiger Stadium at night, in your opinion? That's a good
Greatest
question.
LSU player in 3 games. For 3 games, he was the greatest LSU player of all time.
Yeah, I think he ran for 230 something yards.
Yeah.
It was some astronaut. I mean, that's 2 football fields plus a third of another.
Yeah.
Think about that. And that's with people chasing you and people hitting you.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, poor guy, he ran into some serious problems over the course of his lifetime. And it's a tragedy that he could not focus and concentrate on football and really make a career out of it.
And Rob,
anytime you get an individual effort like that, even the fans of the other team appreciate an extraordinary superhuman effort by whoever the player is.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing, Rob. He did the exact same amount of yardage the next week against Mississippi State, or it was the week before. It was incredible to have those 2 back-to-back performances on the floor in Tiger Stadium. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, where would you rank the 2007 Auburn LSU game when they threw the touchdown pass with 1 second left and they went on to win the national championship that year?
Demetrius Byrd. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I would rank it as I think Les would say they ran it just the way we drew it. Maybe Les had seen the video of the 1972 LSU Ole Miss game where, Burt Jones threw 2 passes in 4 seconds, and of course Burt had a quick release. It was really quick that night. But
hey, Dan, I've seen the sign across the Mississippi River Bridge on the Mississippi side. That was classic.
They said,
I passed it last night in the RV, and I was expecting to see another one painted on there.
They say the time stood still in Tiger Stadium. In fact, we nominated the timekeeper for the Heisman Trophy, and he came in second.
Hey, timekeeper Boudreaux did a fine job that night.
Yeah. Dan Borne, I got a question for you. Each day, at the end of the day, as the sun begins to go down, it's a very special time. And if it's a Saturday in Baton Rouge, Sam Kinison had a moment with Rodney Dangerfield in the movie Back to School. And he got down there and he was like, say it. But could you please, just for all of us, say what you say before a night game, 30 minutes before kickoff at Tiger Stadium, because it is so special. I don't care who you're a fan of. You have to love it, the history, the traditions, and the heroes. And this is just kind of like getting the band together to hear this.
Yeah. Well, I don't do it every game. I do it when an afternoon game starts late enough so that at the end of the third quarter, it's about dusk. And the band at the end of the third quarter plays its pregame. It starts with a big drum roll, and then it goes dun, 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 and the crowd goes crazy. So while that drum roll is going, I'll say something like, the sun has found its home in the western sky, and it is now Saturday night in Death Valley. And then everything kind of blows up. It's magic.
By the way,
it's fun.
I get chills just standing out in the parking lot hearing that.
Wow, that was powerful. Oh my God!
When Dan saying that, the place goes nuts.
Frank's got chills, everybody.
That's right. Hey, look. Hey, when Dan says that in the stadium, I'm telling you, the place loses its mind. You can normally just faintly see the last rays of sunlight. If you're up on the east side, you can barely just see them going over the west bank. And I'm telling you, place goes crazy. If we're within 10 points, we're winning the game when that happens.
Let's hold this for just a second. We've got a quick break. We're going to come back for a couple more questions before y'all have to go. But, man, Dan Borne, voice of Tiger Stadium, with us after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
I'm back here with you. And Dan Borne and everybody, my wife Audrey and producer, and she runs this show, made a good point. She said, I could imagine Dan Borne and all the PA announcers getting together at a bar in New Orleans and being the waitress taking the drink orders. I'll have a Jack Daniels tall with water and quinine.
That's great.
I'll have a cold 32-ounce Frosty Hams beer with 1 minute and 12 seconds left. Dan, I'm telling you that just hearing that, we got a couple of guys in the hunting club at the Cherry Farm from Lake Charles, and they've just upgraded the cooking, the food over here. I mean, you could take a stick and do what they do, like Frank's Gumbo we had a few weeks ago with Doug Dean at Lake Martin. How special is it just to get to see every Saturday all the people coming back? You know, we had the virus year in 2020, right after LSU had been on a high of all highs for the national championship. And I've been to Tiger Stadium. I was there at the earthquake game. I like to talk. I was speechless for about an hour after that game. You know, and the funny story is Eddie Fuller, who caught that ball for LSU. Remember the story? His father was at Fort Polk in Leesville and was about to be transferred to Fort Benning, a quick 35-minute drive from the Auburn campus. But the orders were changed late, so he signed with LSU. And then later his brother Eddie Fuller went to LSU. But the scene at that game was incredible. And I'll tell you, just my personal experiences in Baton Rouge, I love those people down there.
Well,
I mean,
as Dan always eloquently puts, it's an LSU gumbo of humanity, and that's what it is out here. The sights, the smells, the sounds.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And you get to see all of that, Dan.
Well, I get to really you know, internalize, and I've seen generations of fans come and go, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've been richly blessed. And people say, well, when are you going to retire? And I say, well, you know, I have a pretty good idea of when I'm slipping, and if I'm slipping, I'm going to hand the mic back and thank them for lending it to me for all these years. Or if they see I'm slipping, then they should let me know. So it's one of those things where LSU has been so kind to me and permitted me to do it through all of these coaches and all of these athletic directors over many, many years. And I'm blessed, and I appreciate it very much.
Dan, you'll call Brian Kelly's second national championship. I promise you.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And you also do basketball, don't you?
I do basketball, and we're excited about our team. I heard you all talking basketball, Bruce Pearl, and the basketball arrangements. Yeah, we're very excited. We got a new coach and a whole new team, a couple of guys that are coming back, which will be helpful. But we're going to get a brand new program, build it from the ground up with good players, good discipline, and a top-notch coach. And we're very excited about it. Come November, we'll get a lot of people in the PMAC. And then on the women's side, we've got Kim Mulkey. So taken together, we'll have a terrific basketball season for both the men and the women.
So you'll be doing all those games. Man, we got to get you back on. This has been just such a treasure to have you on. And Frank, thank you so much. I know you got a tough day ahead of you, but this is what we do this show for, to showcase people. They know who you are. Now they've heard from you. So thank you so much. And whatever causes, whatever with LSU, if you got something you want to say for people to support, whatever, feel free to do it now, but look forward to your next visit.
Listen, thanks so much, Rob, and thanks, Jimmy, and thanks, Frank, and have a blessed trip down to New Orleans. I hope all things go well with the family down there. So
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for everything. And again, shout out to Dick Wall Sr., a World War II vet, Korean War vet, who's being laid to rest today. A good friend of mine, his father, and many people are going to be down there to pay their respects.
Well, that's what it's all about. Is these are the people, the greatest generation ever. They ain't kidding. So thank you so much.
Right.
We'll be talking to you tomorrow, Frank. And again, Dan, have a good one tomorrow. We'll be watching as Ole Miss comes to Baton Rouge, and it'll be close to dark when it's all over, but it'll be a great game as always.
I'll video
thanks
it.
so much, guys. Have a great
All right, thank you,
guys.
weekend.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks,
Go,
Rob.
all right,
Thank
go
you.
Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. LSU Tigers down there, man. Dan Borne, that was really cool. And Frank Duffy and Ken Capps is going to join us here in a minute. Always love having him on, Football Writers Association of America, because he's down in Dallas, Austin, all over Texas, all over the country, covering college football. And Ken Capps is on here with us right now. Ken, I got some great notes last night. A couple of things. Let's address it. Talk about that Big Bertha, the drum, Big Bertha 2 at Texas, and about field, storming the field and all like that. Listen, man, we're all ears when you're on. Welcome to Sidelines.
Well, hey, good to see you guys. And it was so interesting listening to Dan and Frank, and what you all are talking about. Actually happens at Big 12 Media Days. All of the radio play-by-play guys for all of the Big 12 schools get together and have a dinner. So can you only imagine all those guys get together and start ordering their meals, and they've all got these great broadcast voices, and they're so that's a lot of fun. I've attended one of those as just a guest, and they're a lot of fun. But yeah, so this storming the field thing, I've really been thinking about this, especially after the Tennessee storming of the field last week. And so I went back and looked. The first storming of the field this year was when Old Dominion stormed the field when they beat Virginia Tech in week 1. Okay, so you think, and that was kind of obscure, but I can understand Old Dominion wanting to do that. Okay, but this, if you guys have noticed, this has really been a thing. Like every week, there's been like a field storming, right, Jimmy? Have you noticed this? And so, so I think the three of us need to set some kind of criteria for this, because I can understand Tennessee wanting to storm the field after losing to Alabama for 15 years, okay? But then let's take the TCU Horned Frogs, okay? They've stormed the field now for their last 2 home games, okay? They beat Oklahoma, okay? They stormed the field for that, but then last week they came back to beat Oklahoma State, and they stormed the field again, and but Texas Tech storms the field in Lubbock when they beat Texas, but then the University of Texas does not storm the field in the Cotton Bowl after they beat Oklahoma.
Yeah,
49-0, the worst loss the Sooners have ever had in the series. They don't storm the field. So yeah. I'm just trying to figure out, when do you storm the field? And I liked what Frank Borne said, about having maturity and all that, because, it was Darrell Royal that said, act like you've been there before. And so I think there does come a maturity of, when do you decide you storm the field and when you don't? So I'm going to throw it open to you guys.
All right, we had this discussion. Gary Harris, our good friend from Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa, he called me Sunday night, and we talked several times off the air, and he was on yesterday. I was in Knoxville for the Tennessee-Alabama game. My wife is Evolved for Life, and I was there. It was an incredible scene, but what I would say the PA announcer could do, I would recommend to say, please refrain from coming on the field until all players are off the field. We appreciate your cooperation. Feel free to roam about the field after the 10-minute rule is up, or 5 minutes, whatever. I get it. I've seen fields being stormed, but that would be a way to simplify it and to avoid some potentially, bad situations. Because when the fans come running on the field and you're trying to get off, some crazy stuff can happen. So let's not put ourselves in a position to fail. Still want to have fun, still going to celebrate, but maybe a 5 or 10 minute rule. That's what I would suggest.
Well, I think that's a good idea because, in several of these cases, there have been players hurt.
Yeah.
And there have been players that have been accused of hurting fans.
Yeah.
And, and of course that's very inappropriate, but, tensions are high. You're mad that you've lost the game. You've got all of these opposing fans in your face yelling at you. Yep. And so it's just a lot of, there's just a lot of bad feelings and good feelings all there together. But Jimmy, I agree with what you said. I thought it was kind of crazy that Tennessee, after their chancellor, actually it was their system president said, "Hey, we'll pay for this next year if you want us to." That the Tennessee came back the next day and they wanted the fans to come up with $150K for the replacement goalposts. And of course, what did the volunteers do? They came up with more money than that in about 2 days. They more than paid for the goalposts. So it's just something I was thinking about because I've never seen in a college football year this much field storming.
Well, I think it's a copycat society that we live in. I mean, something is shared on social media and instantly everybody sees it. And I don't, you got a player that was on the field after the Tennessee-Alabama game. Something happened with him and a fan. We don't know the circumstances.
Right.
Again, I've been on the field after a game it's crazy down there. And if you think about it, the football coach is going out to shake hands and he's got his troopers around him and his policemen and all. They want to get him out of there. Well, try walking toward the bench in a courtroom without first asking to do so permission from the judge. You'll be knocked off your feet by the bailiffs. They're not there as decorations. Okay. So you think about it. A coach, Nick Saban talked about he got some bruises in the A&M game last year in College Station, but nothing happened to him the other day. I don't think any fans, well, I can't say that, but somebody gets liquored up, some 6'5", 300-pound guy, goes running out there and doesn't see you. That's like getting hit by a car. So I just say, hey, still want to have fun, do the 5 or 10 minute rule. It works with kids and it works with adults. Before you say something you were going to regret, maybe count to 10 or do something.
Well, you're right. But, nobody's going to listen to the stadium announcer, though.
No.
I mean,
I thought I'd throw that in.
It's a good idea in a perfect world, but nobody's going to listen because they're ready to go. And those poor people in the yellow jackets that wear the event staff on the back of their jackets, there's no way they're going to stop all those folks from climbing over the stands. There's just no way. So anyway, but hey, you brought up a very good point though about I call it the drum wars and that's the thing I love talking to you guys about are college traditions.
Yeah.
So the last week at the University of Texas, they came out with a new drum called Big Bertha 2. And now they had Big Bertha 1. And they say that this Big Bertha 2 drum is the largest college drum in the largest bass drum in the world. And it comes in at 9.5 feet. Okay. Well, Purdue says, and if you look on the side, Jimmy, you know this, on the side of
I know it.
It says world's largest bass drum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I went and looked all this up too. This is going to be a very interesting controversy between Purdue and Texas band, because the Purdue says their drum is a quote around 10 feet. Okay. This is so great. And I sent this to Rob last night. A reporter actually sent a Freedom of Information Act request to Purdue to ask the exact dimensions of the Purdue drum. The state of Indiana denied that request because Purdue says that is a trade secret. Okay, so Purdue won't give out the exact dimensions of their drum. However, another reporter, you know how these reporters are, they sent a picture of this drum to a mechanical engineer, and the guy did his calculations, and according to his calculations, the drum is only 7.5 feet. He said he may be off by a couple of inches, but it's only 7.5 feet. Okay?
I love it.
Now, Texas's drum dimensions are public record, and they're 9.5. So, we need to get these drums together, I think, on the same field and line them up and see how it works out. But very interesting that the Texas now says they've got the world's largest bass drum. But, according to Purdue, it's still right there on their drum. They say they've got the world's largest drum. So we're going to have to get this solved before the end of the season.
Well, I mean, it's a big, we got a lot of mechanical engineers that listen to this show. Right. We got a lot of, we sell a lot of Browne suits and hush puppies, man. I mean, this is tough. This is a tough question. I want to say real quick, thanks to listeners like Lane Duggar, who's up there visiting his brother Lee Duggar, who owns Earthscapes Collaborative in Asheville, North Carolina. And also my daughter Hallie and her husband Brooks Meadows listening out at the cabin on the lake this morning up in Richmond, right around Richmond, Virginia. Thanks to all of our listeners. We love and appreciate every dadgum one of you. All right, this drum thing, Texas. Now, I one time at Studio Wrestling on Saturday mornings, WMC TV5, 1960 Union Avenue in Memphis, we were down there and I discovered a trade secret. I'm going to make it public now. Underneath the arena, and that wrestling's real. So anyway, they have the silver chains over there, the steel cables in the corners. That was duct tape, okay? And number two, underneath the wrestling arena, I know I'm crushing a lot of people's hearts out there. I do believe in Santa Claus, though. Underneath there, they had like a big space and a big microphone. So when there was stomping up there, kaboom, you could hear it across the Mississippi River over in Arkansas. So a little bit of a trade secret there, wrestling, and but that was all real. That was real stuff.
Well, I actually talked to the gentleman that helped make the new drum at Texas, Big Bertha 2, last week, and I thought this was really cool. They have put a wireless mic inside of the new drum that is connected to the stadium sound system. So when they do beat that drum, I know that's probably not the right term for how they strike it, but when they strike that drum, it actually is going through the entire stadium sound system now. So like you're saying, it's going to be really loud, and 100,000 people are going to hear it all over it.
All right, real quick before we go to the break, my wife was a snare drummer in middle school at the Collierville Middle School Band. She said the correct term is to beat on the drums. And she was actually congratulating members, a couple of trombone and tuba players in the Tennessee band after the event the other day. She goes, "You should always love your band and love your drums." We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, Rob Browne back here with you. The beat goes on, no pun intended. the big part, you think about the bands, the drums, and everything. I just hope one day, I said this jokingly last year about the band taking up 450 or 500 seats.
Right.
I said, just put a CD, in the PA announcer's thing when the band needs to play. But no, we got to have the band and those good looking shoes they wear and the hats and everything else. But Ken, looking at this college football season, man, you're a Heisman Trophy voter. You get to see a lot of games around the country. First off, I want to ask you what's going on with Oklahoma. Brent Venables in his first year. Hell, he's been there 13 years as a defensive coach, went to Clemson for 10. He's back. I mean, think about it. How many guys left? 22 left with Lincoln Riley to go to Southern Cal, including Caleb Williams. Spencer Rattler transferred out. What more could you have dumped in this guy's lap?
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier in the year, and I said this before the Texas OU game. He's kind of in the same boat that Steve Sarkisian was in last year with Texas. Steve inherited a lot of players that were really not interested in being on his team. And I still didn't understand that. I mean, here Sarkisian is the offensive coordinator for the Alabama team that wins the national championship, comes 3 months later to the University of Texas, and there are people that don't want to buy into his program. I mean, I'm like, what? And and then Venables gets to Oklahoma. I mean, they called him an outside hire. I don't see him as an outside hire at all. I mean, he knows that program backwards and forwards. And the cupboard was kind of laid bare by Lincoln Riley. And but I think he's going to do just fine. I mean, if this is the year you want to kick Oklahoma, you better get your kicking out of the way now, because they're going to be back pretty darn quick. And he's just got to hit the portal real hard, like Sark did this year. I mean, that's what's really, Sark did a great job on the portal, and I think Venables is going to do the same thing in this coming December, January, and I think they're going to be right back.
Yeah, and I will say this. I know this. Texas has a winning record, and they hadn't played them every year. I know that. But they have a winning record against every team in the SEC, with the exception of Vanderbilt. They hadn't played them in a long time. I'd be willing to bet Oklahoma has a winning record against every team in the SEC. Again, they don't play week in and week out. They played Arkansas, who's a very natural, close rival, maybe 15 times, but hadn't played in 17, 18 years or whatever. But Oklahoma, Texas, they won a lot of championships. They have the money, and they also have the fan base that makes, and the administration that makes a commitment to win. So I don't look for them. Yeah, you better get them while you can, because they're going to go through a learning curve. They're going to have to. Everybody does that. But they've been playing championship level football, those two schools, for a long time. Granted, the SEC is brutal, but give them time. They have the resources and they have the recruiting base. They're going to be right in the fight.
Well, certainly. And what's been interesting this week, I don't know where people have come up with this stuff, and maybe you guys have seen it on the internet, but people have been putting out these fake schedules for Texas and Oklahoma, their SEC schedules for 2025. And it's a fake because they have Texas opening the season in 2025 against Texas Tech. And I can assure you that Texas ain't going to be playing Texas Tech anytime soon, especially after Texas Tech's demeanor up in Lubbock, and how that game ended, and about how the fans ended the game there. And Texas Tech can talk all their trash about how Texas doesn't want to play them anymore. No. So I don't know where all these schedules are coming from. It had Texas ending the season at Auburn, and I don't see that happening in either, because Texas always likes to play their last game after Thanksgiving at home. That used to always be a home and home with A&M, And
Mhm.
since that ended, it used to be played on Thanksgiving Day, as you know, which was awesome. But since that ended, Texas has always played a home game on the Friday after Thanksgiving against some Big 12 opponent. So I don't know where all these fake schedules are coming from, but they're a real disservice to both Oklahoma and to Texas.
Yeah. Jimmy?
Well, Ken, I think it was maybe Monday night. I was watching the SEC network, and on the crawl at the bottom of the screen, I saw something to the effect that Texas and Oklahoma had announced that they would not be entering the SEC until the 2025 football season. And I was kind of puzzled as I looked at that. Do you have any information on your end if there have been multiple sources that are maybe confirming that? Because it was unusual for me to see that on a platform like the SEC network without, you'd think they wouldn't have it on there without multiple confirmations. What's your understanding of where all that stands right now?
Well, I've heard it multiple times from Oklahoma and from Texas that they are not coming until 2025 because the buyout is $80 million.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's even a lot of money for Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but you know, Kent. No, go ahead. No,
No,
Kent,
I was just going to say that's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of money
go
for
ahead.
those two.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but as a follow up to that, though, what my understanding was, since ESPN had dropped out of the Big Ten bidding, that they were going to be negotiating with Brett Yormark, the new Big 12 commissioner, about redoing the contract and adding to, you know, what the schools are going to be receiving by a considerable amount. And also the possibility that ESPN would help both Texas and Oklahoma with those exit fees, combined with the sweetening of the pot for the Big 12 in their upcoming contract, with the addition of the 4 schools we all know about that will be joining the Big 12.
Well, you know, I know Rob will like this because he always likes to quote songs and movies. You know, it's the old song by Richard Marx. You know, until they sign on the bottom line, it don't mean nothing. And until I see that signed, I still think it's 2025. But I tell you, I'll tell you this: the Big 12 is ready for those guys to get out of here.
Yeah,
yeah,
they really are.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
because-
really are. They would like him to go next year.
Yes, because
Well-
they know the makeup of their conference, so they're ready to get going with it. But I love the comments you made, Ken, because it's like Dean Smith used to say, if you don't sign them, you never had them to begin with.
That's exactly right.
And Ken, that it's like a bad marriage. I mean, the kids don't need to see the parents pushing each other away or walking down the hall and saying ugly things to one another. Just move on. They don't want to be in the Big 12 anymore. They're done with it. Big 12's done with them. And then what you're getting is resentment on everybody's part. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma, once that announcement was made, July 22nd, I think, of a year ago at Hoover at SEC Media Days, it was quick. I mean, I said at the time, I said, 3 schools can vote to keep them out of the SEC. And I said, they wouldn't have made that announcement on this big a stage if they hadn't already worked everything out. So, Ken, let's bring in Bo Carter, a long time with the Big 12 office, the Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America, join in here in this Friday rapid fire round table, because what's going on out there in Oklahoma and Texas, it reverberates around the country. Now it's heading back east toward the SEC, the fake schedules. I'm glad you pointed that out, Ken, because there's so much stuff out on social media. I stay in sports. I don't get out of out of that lane. And, you just made a great, you described it, these fake schedules out there. And and Bo, both of y'all know what Texas likes. I mean, you're there, you're in those meeting rooms. And by the way, wouldn't that be cool though? All the Big 12 radio play-by-play guys at Big 12 media days together, it'd be great. I mean, Bo Carter ordering a Bud Light coming down the alley. Here he comes. And oh no, he's going to order some wings and some riblets. So here we go. I mean, it would just be, that would be a lot of fun. Bo, one of my favorite things to do is get you and Ken on this show, because what goes on again out there in Texas, it reverberates all over the country. Let's get your thoughts on where we are in college football at this point, going into week 8. The fans are just going crazy. They're storming fields. People are going crazy. I mean, this is like, squeal day at a sorority row at an SEC school.
I heard the goalposts are still running around Knoxville somewhere. So.
Listen, Audrey's cousin Mark Ham, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, has a bounty out there for a piece of those goalposts. I mean, he's willing to pay. Supposedly, they went into the Tennessee River. But then I heard they're at the Sigma Chi house there in Knoxville. So like Daniel Simpson Day, whereabouts unknown, all classes incomplete.
They are. One of them's at the Sigma Chi house. They cut it into like 100 pieces, and they saved about a 3-foot and a 4-foot piece, and those are going to be framed, for viewing forever. And the other goalpost, I'm not sure about the whereabouts of that one.
Yeah,
but it will be located. I will assure you that there's too much money to be made.
Yeah.
Ken remembers this, where they would chop, like I said, Jimmy, they'd chop them up into pieces and auction them off and, give them to charity or line their pockets. One of the two.
All of the above.
They'll make some nice Christmas gifts.
That's right.
Listen, the Tennessee River, you got a lot of mussel divers over there, okay? So there'll be some mussel divers that go diving for mussels, go over there to, Knoxville and just insert, from the Vol Navy and get after it, because they do have UT Martin game tomorrow. And I understand they had a bake sale. The ladies at the church did. They had a yodeling contest. They've raised the money. They will have goalposts tomorrow. So, yes, you'll be able to kick field goals and extra points. But I believe Tennessee's going to win tomorrow. I don't see them storming the field, but it is I'm glad nobody was hurt, but golly, guys, this college football, the fans are going crazy. The numbers, there were 17 million people, Bo, at one time watching Tennessee and Alabama. I think there were 11.6 million maybe that watched the entire thing. I don't know how they count those. I mean, it's like the duck count. There's 95,243,723 ducks in the flyway this year. Are you sure? I think there's 95,247,329. I just thought I'd throw that in. But I guess they use some sort of a mathematical grid. But, Bo, when you look at the big picture, Buddy Martin's right. The fans, who owns college football? The fans do. Big 12, I want to get your thoughts. Lance Leipold has done a lot up at Kansas, and you and Ken see that out there. I think they're 5-2 now, lost to Oklahoma. But is Lance Leipold a long-term guy at Kansas? I mean, they've got money, I know.
Yes, they're doing Ken knows about this $350 million stadium expansion. Which we mentioned before.
Wow.
Newt Rockne poured the concrete for it in 1921. Notre Dame didn't pay
and Bo was there for that.
Yeah.
I held the frame while he was putting it in.
That is awesome.
No, I think he's there to stay. They've made a commitment to football as well as basketball, sort of like Kentucky with Mark Stoops. So that's going to be quite a good deal there.
Well, I mean, he's success in Division III or NAIA, then at Buffalo, and I don't know where Lance Leipold is from, but his name is going to be brought up in possible coaching searches everywhere. But I think Auburn has learned you can bring a guy from the outside, but he better have contacts and relationships in the South to understand the dynamics of recruiting there. So that part of it's big. But Ken brought it up earlier in the show about Brent Venables. I mean, I remember his name being mentioned for years while he was at Oklahoma for other jobs. He loved it at Oklahoma. He goes to Clemson for 10 years, has great success. I would want that guy as my coach. That guy knows how to win. Is it just the microwave society we live in? You know, people are just mad because they see other teams around them winning. I mean, come on, people need to pull themselves together. That guy he's a discount value stock. He's like, if you could buy Exxon now at $12 a share, you'd do it.
He really is. And, you know, they got hit badly, as we mentioned before, by the transfer portal. And they had a lot of seniors last year that it's, you know, as hard as it is to believe, Oklahoma's kind of in rebuilding mode this year. And then Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback, got hurt. And that really, Ken saw that in person when the Longhorns annihilated them 49-0. So they don't have a lot of depth. In fact, we were talking about one of the second or third team quarterbacks, General Booty, Johnny Booty's grandson, the son of all the Booty families. So they've got some talent back there.
That one of the great names, wasn't it? It's General Booty.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what, I don't know what his NIL deals are, guys, but I'm waiting for Stetson Bennett IV, Ken, at Georgia to get a deal with Stetson Western Wear. You know, when's that happening? I mean, Ken, looking at some of these national stories, just you talk to reporters, both of y'all do all over the country. And Jimmy and I talk about it a lot, but what are the consensus opinions that you've reached or that you're hearing among coaches from around the country about NIL? How much is it affecting preparation for games?
I haven't really heard that much. I mean, I haven't really heard that much negative about NIL. And I really think that coaches are hesitant to speak out against NIL for fear of making their players mad, because their players are getting a ton of NIL deals. I mean, I look at Quinn Ewers at Texas. He has played now about 15 quarters of football at Texas, and he's got more NIL deals than anybody on the team, even more than Bijan Robinson. And so, and you know, again, I hear these questions asked all the time by reporters. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think of NIL? Oh, we love NIL. We think it's great by the coaches, because I don't think they don't really want to, you know, tip their hand and say, well, I really don't like it or something, for fear that they won't get the recruits.
Yeah. Let's do this. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with more on this rapid fire roundtable college football blitz Sidelines Friday after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
When this rapid fire roundtable college football blitz with Ken Capps, Bo Carter, Jimmy Hodge, and I, Rob Browne, talking college football. You know, the A&M NIL deal, I'm hearing now that $25 million figure we heard is over a 5-year period. So you look at schools like Auburn and Alabama, I think they're way behind, but they're catching up pretty fast. I hear Auburn's about to unleash some powerful NIL funds. So it'd be fun to watch that one. Ken, I want to get your thoughts and then bounce it around with you and Jimmy and Bo. Alabama at this point, the second game against Texas, they won on the last play. They won. A&M had a chance on the last play. Maybe it's something about playing teams whose name begins with a T, Texas, Texas A&M, and Tennessee. But, you know, Rodney Orr, Gary Harris, yesterday covers Alabama for us in Tuscaloosa. Alabama could be 4-3. Right now they're 6-1. They could be 7-0. You don't know where this team's going, but big picture from 35,000 feet above. Ken, I'll start with you, and then Bo. What about this Alabama team? And are they slipping a little bit? Are there an area of the team that concerns you?
God, Alabama loses one game, and all of a sudden the sky is falling.
Yeah.
So many teams, every team would love to be Alabama and have Nick Saban as their coach, would have Bryce Young on one side of the ball and have Will Anderson on the other side of the ball. This year, Tennessee just happened to have a better team and still just barely beat them.
Yes.
So, I'm not worried about Alabama at all.
Yeah.
So
and
I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, as Gary pointed out, 4 times in the 6 national championship seasons that Nick Saban's had since he's been at Alabama, Alabama did lose a game during the regular season, and they bounced back. And I just, that's my thinking is until I'm proven wrong, Alabama is still what everybody wants to be and wants to beat. And if you beat them, it's usually an epic game, isn't it, Bo?
It really is. I at my old employer in Mississippi State, where I worked for 12 years, is kind of a little nervous this week. Usually after Alabama loses one, and they want to keep that CFP rating coming up here in about a week, they'll blow the Bulldogs out of the water, I'm afraid. But we'll hope maybe Will Rogers will pass 75 times. I guess. Who knows?
Yeah, Mike Leach. I think Mike Leach is going to be very, very worried this week,
to say the least.
Yeah, and I think it's just Jimmy, this being an Alabama guy, I think people just look. Yeah, there's some issues. Bryce Young was running for his life the other day, but they still have Bryce Young, and he looked as healthy as ever. He is, in my opinion, the best player in college football, and I agree with Gary Harris. Bryce Young is the best quarterback in Alabama history, and they've had some good ones, Jimmy.
Yeah, they certainly have, but I have concerns about Alabama's defense, especially in that secondary. I can promise you that Leach and the offensive coaching staff are going to be studying that Tennessee tape very closely, because Alex Grenish, the offensive coordinator at Tennessee, did a great job in putting out formations in which safeties were lined up on against Hyatt, and they beat them deep repeatedly, and Alabama really did not make many adjustments, and that's a concern, because I've said this repeatedly this week, that even though neither defense could stop the other, Tennessee, though, was always trying to make adjustments. They were trying to change their alignments on almost every play. They blitzed a lot, including that final Alabama offensive play in which Bryce had to get rid of the ball early because the blitz forced him to do so, whereas Alabama, they just were passive. They didn't really change their alignments much. They hardly blitzed at all, and it was just kind of concerning that they didn't try to make adjustments to try to stop that Tennessee offense. So hopefully that will change this week. And State this year is more dangerous because they've really committed to the running game. And when they are able to run for 125 plus yards, that really makes that air raid offense more dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, rule of thumb, Ken, if you can run the ball for 150 or more yards, pass the ball for 250, 260, you have a real good chance to win. But it's that running stat. And I'm with Jimmy. Will Anderson, your best player on defense, can't have a 0 out to the side of his name in the stat sheet in a game like Tennessee. Mm-hmm. But he also can make it to where nobody runs to his side. But right. I tell you, that left tackle for Tennessee, Darnell Wright, I think made himself a lot of money potentially in the NFL draft. But I mean, there are concerns, but they're still Alabama. And, what's Nick Saban, 182, 183, and 26? I'll take that any day.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to boil down. It'll just be very interesting. You've got Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia. So, you've got 3 teams who's going to be edged out there in the SEC championship game. And then when you get to the CFP, you've got Ohio State that's still undefeated. You've got Clemson that's still undefeated. They're going to play Syracuse this week. I think that they're two undefeated teams. If Clemson wins, they don't really have anybody else hard to play. So Alabama is still may make the CFP. So again, and this is the kind of thing Alabama worries about. Not many teams get to worry about this every single year.
Yeah. Bo Carter, one team nobody mentioned about in the running for Atlanta is the 7-0 Ole Miss Rebels, who go down to Tiger Stadium for the 2:30 CBS Color TV game of the week. What do you think about Ole Miss being in the mix? I think LSU is going to be a tough opponent for them.
I agree. LSU's defense is really, they didn't show it against Florida. Florida's got a great athletes out there on offense, but if Ole Miss beats LSU, I think they're going to, I don't know, who knows, but they've got Alabama still on the schedule, but they've Arkansas, traditional rivals, but this might be the year for Lane Kiffin and the boys. You just never know.
And why would people want to talk about Lane Kiffin going to Nebraska? This has been talking about all week. Why in the world? I mean, I know his dad was there and everything else, but I mean, he's doing great at Ole Miss.
Yeah, he is. And, you hear him mentioned with a lot of other schools, but man, he is the big guy on campus, and he doesn't have, he does what he thinks. He is the face of Ole Miss football. And Jimmy, quick one for you. You mentioned that Nebraska job. We just talked about Kansas committing $350 million to the football stadium. Would Lance Leipold walk out on that to take the Nebraska job? I mean, I know that's a funny question. You could say, of course he would. What do you think?
I think that's a $64,000 question. I mean, he would be perfect there. Now he's in his late 50s, but I think 10 solid years there would make Nebraska the type of coveted job that it was during the Osborne years. And I think he would do wonders there. But the fact that Kansas has committed to $300 million for renovating the football stadium indicates that they're going to do everything they can to keep him. And Kansas would be undefeated right now had Daniels, their quarterback, not gotten injured, in the third quarter of that of the first loss. TCU, who's undefeated, by the way. And this guy is a fabulous coach, and I think he would look long and hard at it, but you just never know. And also Matt Campbell might be a guy that could be looking at that Nebraska job too. So that's going to be really interesting. But Nebraska is in a situation they can't miss on this one. They've got to get this choice right, and I think Trey Alberts knows it.
Trev Alberts, yeah. Here's a question for you for Bo. You and Ken both are around. You see a lot of campuses all over the country. Are the Big 12 schools, I think most people, they just don't know that much about them. They've got money. They've got resources. Are they starting to say, okay, let's make that commitment that they do in the SEC here in the Big 12? Because they've got it in basketball, wrestling, baseball. If you got the money, and it's going to be, who knows what's going to happen if they add Arizona and Arizona State, but they're bringing in 4 pretty darn good schools from some big TV markets.
Yeah, I agree. Ken probably knows this too. The oil money has always been a big factor in Oklahoma and Texas.
It's kind of important.
Oil prices are going up, wherever they're going. But Jimmy had a good point too. I'm just one of these people. A lot of people have the same theory, and I think Ken probably may have too. When Nebraska left to go to the Big Ten, it just wasn't a great fit. That's not a good place to go when you're trying to rebuild your program back to the Osborne days. And when they were at the Big 8, it was the Big 2 and the Little 6. I mean, Oklahoma and Nebraska just absolutely dominated. I mean, Missouri and Kansas would jump in every once in a while, Colorado, but they had the best of all worlds there. And boy, you've got to play 13 other, potential national champions or bowl teams every week in the Big Ten. So there were thoughts at one time, Ken, people rumored that Nebraska might think about going back to the Big 12 after the turnover there with Oklahoma and Texas. But Yeah, you're right, Rob. The Big 12, I think, gets underrated quite a bit.
Oh, big. I think it's underrated big time. Ken, looking there, you're in Texas, 400 plus Division I players a year come out of that state. Probably 15 to 20% of the starting Division I quarterbacks nationally are high school products of Texas. Okay. A lot of them out there. What's going on at Texas A&M? When I hear they're getting rid of the worst cheerleading uniforms around, I love A&M. I love the traditions and all, but they look like orderlies. I mean, it's just I just wonder, maybe that's it. They're the only school that has that, along with VMI. But I'm curious how much. And you said that's even too much money. That $95 million by Texas standards, and it's nothing against Jimbo Fisher, but when you pay someone that kind of money and you're becoming an 8-4 program, what have they gained by moving on from Kevin Sumlin, who after going in 5 years in, he and Jimbo have identical records?
Yeah. Well, hey, good for Jimbo that he was able to get it, Yeah. He must be a hell of a negotiator.
Yeah. I can't fault him. I'd take it.
But the Yell leaders at A&M, for years, they've been called here in Texas milkmen. They look like guys that deliver the milk to your house back in the day. But I like them too. I mean, I love that. I mean, that's a way I love the traditions of college football, and A&M is right. Hey, the great thing about A&M, look, after they score a touchdown, they kiss their dates. I mean, that's a pretty good tradition right there.
Yeah, it is.
And
yeah.
You can't beat that.
Hey, I tell you though, that tradition though could cause maybe some of those dates to think twice about the offer of a certain gentleman to attend the game with them. I've always wondered about that.
Well, that may be the first kiss some of these Aggie males have ever received. So it's maybe good for them.
And you got to stand.
I mean, A&M is kind of in just a unique position now, because you really can't fire Jimbo Fisher, because you just can't let $95 million walk out the door.
No.
I think the only alternative that he has is to, and I know that he's not going to like this, but is to hire an offensive coordinator after this year, and see if it gets better. But A&M, they would just catch so much hell if they let him go and $95 million walks out of College Station.
He's an overpriced version of Gus Malzahn. It's what he is. He doesn't want to relinquish control of the offense, and then he'll bring somebody in because some big booster went to him potentially and said, hey, you want to save your job? You find someone to throw overboard if things start falling apart. He'll hire you an offensive coordinator, someone who's not real strong, that'll just do what you tell him. I like Jimbo Fisher I think he's a cool guy. I think he's funny, but look, you're in year 5. Is A&M any better than they were when Kevin Sumlin was there? Kevin Sumlin won more games at home and on the road versus top 5, top 10, top 25 competition. Yet you're paying this guy a whole lot more money. And if you don't have accountability, man, you can't stay on course to successfully conclude your mission. And I love the traditions of Texas A&M. Don't get me wrong. I love them. I mean, I'm just kidding about the milkmen. That's funny that you say that, but you're right. Ken, you just said the best thing I've heard on the show this morning, and I've heard a lot of smart things about a lot of smart people. You just can't let $95 million walk out the door, because the next guy's going to come along and say, well, you paid him 95. I want 150.
Yeah, well, that ain't happening again. And, I really think that the downfall of Jimbo and where he started losing a lot of respect here in Texas was when he got in that, pardon my language, pissing match with Saban. I mean, that was just not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And people saw that as very disrespectful. And, that's just, he really, really got mean and ugly about that.
Yeah.
And, that just wasn't cool to many people. And you keep losing, and the offense is absolutely anemic. You've got the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And I don't know. It's going to be very interesting, but I don't know how. If he lose, there's still 1 or 2 games they could lose. I don't know how he does not hire an offensive coordinator at the end of this year to kind of take the heat off of him.
Yeah, exactly that. Hey, look, great show today, man. It flies by. It's like the Carol Burnett show. I'm so glad we've had this time together to share a laugh or 2 or 3. Man, but it's great stuff. But a couple of things I want to say. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give out of the goodness of your heart. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And kind of keep a account, if you can, in your own mind of like, have I done things today that I didn't do the day before to make everybody around me better and make the place where I am better, make it a better place. Do that. That's what football coaches need to say when they get jobs. Okay. It was great long before I got here. When I leave, I want it to be better than it's ever been. So again, I think you're right, Ken, about it'll never happen again. Hopefully these ridiculous coaching contracts, but look, you and I, we have pride. I would want to go out and prove, yeah, I'm worth it. I just think some of these guys, money can be an intoxicating elixir. That's why they don't give big advances. REM got $80 million back in the late 80s. They're not around anymore. Now you might get $500,000 as an advance. Don't make it to where people don't feel like they need to get up out of bed in the morning. Keep them hungry always. Okay. Until then, everybody, have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow. We are out of here. Thanks for listening.